If you're watching this video, you probably either like to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Or you're a masochist fixated on card games. To keep their software fresh and engaging, Konami must first keep both parties engaged, and part of their strategy for doing this is exclusive events. Better catch that Dumont Unlock event in Duel Links, or else you won't be able to watch the number 102 star Seraph Sentry summoning animation for at least a few months, or whatever the event is going on in the future after days of scriptwriting. Events have been part of Duel Links since pretty much the launch, so let's look at some of the best events from this 8-ish odd years old mobile game. And starting off at number 10, we have the Darksider Kalen Kessler event, Ray Duel The Flames of Vengeance Ccapac Apu. First running in late of June of 2019 and a second time in October, Flames of Vengeance was the first in a new line of boss battle events where players would square off directly with a giant version of an ace monster. For Kalen's event, this was Earthbound Immortal Ccapac Apu. Later events in this series would see players face Mechlord Emperor Weasel, Buster Gundil the Cubic Behemoth, number 15 Gimmick Puppet Giant Grinder, and more. But back to Flames of Vengeance. While dueling against Ccapac Apu, players had until the giant's 5th turn to defeat it, or else get immediately crushed by its Earthbound Immortal Fist, resulting in a draw. As the difficulty level of the opposing Ccapac Apu increased, it would have better cards and more life points. Actually, tens and hundreds of thousands of more life points. And after difficulty level 300, it got access to a skill. From Ccapac Apu's 3rd turn on, and while it was 10,000 or less life points, it can activate Dark Synchro Preparations. This skill instantly plays an Infernity Beetle and an Infernity Destroyer from outside of Apu's deck, giving it all of the resources necessary to synchro summon 100 Eyes Dragon. Using Infernity Destroyer as a material made this dragon especially lethal, since 100 Eyes Dragon can copy the effects of a dark monster in the graveyard. After copying Infernity Destroyer's ability to inflict 1600 burn damage after destroying a monster, 100 Eyes Dragon could deal massive damage and even OTK over a monster with low enough attack. You know, if you were bold enough to leave your Curtain of the Dark Ones undefended. After level 500, Ccapac Apu traded out its Dark Synchro Preparation skill for Offering to the Immortals. As long as Ccapac Apu controlled a field spell, it could skip their 4th draw and summon 2 defense position ceremonial tokens instead. Then, the skill would add an Earthbound Immortal to its hand, which for Ccapac Apu was itself, Earthbound Immortal Ccapac Apu. But the raid boss wasn't the only one with special advantages. To compensate for the massively inflated life point starting value, players dealt double damage with Synchro monsters and triple damage with the Signer Dragons. And if they weren't able to defeat the boss in one bout, the damage inflicted would carry over to the next challenge. This meant that for high-level bosses, attaining victory might require several challenges. Other players could also assist, adding their damage to the pot, which was probably nicer for newer players with less cards at their disposal. Additionally, players could use an event item to challenge Ccapac Apu to Turbo Duel, allowing them to expend speed counters to do things like draw a card or double the attack of all your synchro cards for the rest of the turn, allowing for truly massive amounts of damage in a single challenge. And speaking of cards, this event introduced the first wave of Duel Links Infernity cards, and although they wouldn't really come together into a deck until July of 2020 main box Infernity Destruction, the cards introduced by the Darksider Kalen event would see use in future Infernity strategies, particularly Infernity Beetle, which could tribute itself to summon 1 or 2 more Infernity Beetles from deck, and Infernity Mirage, which could tribute itself to revive 2 Infernity monsters from the graveyard. Another noteworthy release from this event was the level 8 Dark Dragon Synchro 100 Eyes Dragon. And after the event's second run, Darksider Kalen Kessler, whose level up rewards include Infernity Necromancer, Infernity Guardian, Infernity Avenger, and Infernity Break. This event is noteworthy because it established raid duels as a thing. Previously, Duel Links had experimented with many of the concepts that would become part of raid duels, including boosted life points, an animated boss, and carryover damage during the I've Got Dino DNA Tyranno Hassleberry's Ultimate Evolution event. But with Flames of Vengeance, these qualities were ironed into the game, setting a pattern that Duel Links would follow in the days and weeks and years to come. The important part of raid duels is they provide one of the answers to a problem faced by many duelists. The PvE content is too easy. While raid duels weren't punishing and that a loss usually wasn't really a loss because the damage carried over to the next game, the Ccapac Apu event tried something, which is always the beginning of anything. What's better than an event that introduces 1 character to the game? Obviously an event that introduces 2, and that's why we're talking about The Duo Returns Lulu Rin at number 9. First running in September of 2024, throughout this event, duelists collected hair accessories and choker items that would let them challenge legendary duelist Lulu Rin at the gate. Additionally, both duelists could appear in the overworld, and could also be used as loner decks during a special event of duels against Yudo and Yugioh. As far as gameplay, this event didn't push any boundaries. It was the usual unlock event, but with 2 characters instead of 1. But that alone propels the importance of this event high enough to land on this list. In Duel Links, the process of card acquisition is grueling. There's a rudimentary card crafting system using a mat called chips, but the cards you can make with those are all many years old. If you want a new card, you're going to have to shell out gems or cash. This is slightly less problematic for mini box releases, since they have a smaller number of total cards in the main boxes. But if your deck requires 3 copies of a main box UR, that's when things get brutal. When it comes to acquiring gems, there are a few methods. Climbing the competitive ladder and fulfilling mission objectives are 2 ways, but by far the most reliable way of scoring a burst of gems is leveling a character. But while this yields a large amount of gems for a relatively low time investment, playable characters are a finite resource. You level a character and get the rewards and won't get them again. This is why unlocking both Lulu and Rin during the same event is significant. It gave players more currency to build decks. And the decks introduced by this event were pretty good. Both Wind Witches and Lyrilists saw immediate competitive success in Duel Links. The Duel Returns even brought important cards like Lyrillist Sapphire Swallow as a drop, and Wind Witch Freezebell as a Rin level up. And the September main box, Majestic Magic, introduced others like Wind Witch Ice Spell and Lyrillist Bird Call. And rolling up to number 8 is the tabletop RPG Monsters World event. This event ran a total of 3 times. Once in August of 2018, again in December of 2018, and a final time in May of 2019. The typical Yu-Gi-Oh gameplay loop involves clicking around the overworld to either edit your deck, acquire more cards, or start a duel. Really, it all comes back around to dueling. And while this was still true for the tabletop RPG Monster World, the event did add another layer to Duel Links gameplay. Where other events saw duelists progressing down a linear path to follow the plot of an anime or ascend the different dimension tower, Monster World very literally pushed the boundaries of what Duel Links events could be. Instead of a set path, players got to navigate an entire game board. Dozens of these boards gave players multiple worlds to navigate, terminating after 40 or 50 boards depending on the iteration of the event. But there was also a system of infinite progression, where after reaching a certain stage in the core event, players could constantly climb a forever set of cycling board patterns. These worlds featured multiple environments, with the decks and creatures you might encounter tailored to match. Forest-themed boards might lead you to encounter insect monsters like Flying Kamakiri No. 1, which you would battle by rolling dice. Additionally, you might encounter duels on the map, with one sure match against the stage's boss, who would often have an environmentally matching deck. For example, when dueling boss Turupurin, you might encounter cards like Orca Mega Fortress of Darkness in their Waters of the Orca Fortress deck. Boss Skull Servant might use other dark cards like Assailant of Darkness and so on. Arch Adversary Dark Master Zork would also periodically infiltrate the game using decks built around himself. The game board themes would include Forest, Swamp, Volcano, Desert, Snow, Castle, Beach, Dungeon, Ocean, and Dark Tower presets, with light and dark limbo themes reserved for infinite mode. In addition to enemy encounters, each board also brought obstacles to impede movement, chests with rewards, and event squares where dialogue would unfold. Ultimately, tabletop RPG Monster World deserves recognition for being possibly the most involved and complex solo event the Duel Links has ever seen, and from its second iteration onward, also introduced Tristan Taylor as a playable character, opening new skills, gems, and card rewards, like Freed the Brave Wanderer and Tardiork. But that's just what makes this event mechanically impressive. Also of note is that the Monster World RPG itself is a carryover from the Yu-Gi-Oh manga. In the Duel Monsters anime, the Monster World was cut from the Duelist Kingdom narrative and replaced with a dreamy shadow game between the Spirit of the Millennium Ring and the Pharaoh instead. But since the Duel Links world exists within the canon of the manga and Dark Side of Dimensions movie, the Monster World RPG is back. It's a piece of lesser-known Yu-Gi-Oh history, and Duel Links players got the chance to walk through it. And popping up at number 7 is Duel Links' first ever event, Welcome to Toon World, running a grand total of 3 times. first in December of 2016, with subsequent iterations in February and April of 2017. Welcome to Toon World pioneered many features that would become Duel Links mainstays, including new characters available for a limited time and exclusive card and cosmetic rewards. This event saw Duel Links' introduction of Maximilian Pegasus, a major antagonist from Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. Gameplay-wise, Welcome to Toon World was pretty simple. Players would collect star chips for doing regular game activities, like dueling in the overworld or against other players online. The star chips could then be exchanged to challenge Pegasus at the legendary Duelist Gate. Players could accumulate his exclusive drops by dueling him, and after accumulating enough event points, unlocking him as a playable character. This came with a copy of his ace monster, Relinquish, while also opening up his level rewards and unique skills, which included the powerful Mind Scan, providing the ability to spy on your opponent's set cards. This skill was particularly powerful with early Duel Links decks like Sergeant Electro Lockdown. Perfect knowledge of your opponent's set back row meant Electro never missed. It also came with the skill It's a Toon World, which basically made Toons a viable strategy since you no longer had to rely on copies of Toon World from your main deck, letting duelists run better ratios of Toon monsters like Toon Mermaid and Toon Summon Skull, with Please Let Me Stay Alive stall cards like Windstorm of Ed Aqua and Curse of Anubis. But aside from skills, Relinquish itself was also incredibly powerful. Senju the Thousand Hands and Sonic Bird were both available early in the game's lifespan, and as consecutive Welcome to Toon World events allowed players to acquire multiple copies of Pegasus' Thousand Eyes Ace, Relinquish became a dangerous force within the meta. But the biggest rewards of Welcome to Toon World was added in its final April 2017 rotation. By acquiring a staggering 3 million event points, players could receive one copy of Toon Dark Magician Girl, by far one of the best Toons. While other early Toons like Blue Eyes Toon Dragon and Toon Summon Skull suffered from summoning sickness, so they had to wait a turn before attacking, Toon Dark Magician Girl could attack on the turn that she hit the field. With 2000 base attack, she was easily capable of OTKing an opponent in 2 hits. This was directly enabled by the normal spell Toon Rollback, which gave one of your Toons a second attack during the battle phase. With a copy of Rollback easily obtainable by leveling Pegasus to 23, Toon Dark Magician Girl was a threat, and for a time she was also one of the most exclusive cards in the game. After the Pegasus event ended, you could still get a copy of her by trading in an Anniversary SR Dream ticket, but that was the only way until finally, years and years later, she was added to the SR rank ticket rotation. Welcome to Toon World tracks as one of Duel Links' top events for both setting an example for what events would be in the future and delivering desirable rewards that were both immediately impactful and would remain exclusive for years to come. While not technically an event in the same style as Welcome to Toon World, Flames of Vengeance, and others, Legacy Duels are a temporary extra game mode that allows players to engage with the core game in a new way for rewards. So, for the purposes of this list, they super count, and they super take number 6. Legacy Duels typically run for about a week and vastly constrain the playable card pool while packing their own event-exclusive ban lists. On top of this, all participants can access the Advanced Drive skill twice per duel, which allows for the tribute summon of a monster on top of the turn player's initial normal summoner set. Bummed that your expensive UR copy of Horus the Black Flame Dragon level 8 was never meta? Good news! In the right Legacy Duels format, you can easily tribute into Horus the Black Flame Dragon level 6 to attack for one of your game's most powerful and finicky walking floodgates. While Legacy Duels pale in complexity compared to events like Tabletop RPG Monster World, their simplicity is a strength, and they're a good way to get longtime players back into the game. A common factor for any TCG that continuously releases new sets is power creep. Players have to acquire new cards to remain competitive within the current meta. For an app like Duel Links, having players constantly chasing new cards is a good thing for the developer perspective, because it encourages consistent play and spending money. There's a balance to be struck here where the game must be profitable enough to remain in service, but not predatory towards players. On this scale, Duel Links is less friendly than Master Duel, because for a long time, there was no card crafting system at all. While the chips currency is available for that purpose today, the selection box of cards you can exchange for them is limited. This eventually culminates into a big Duel Links problem. There are tons of boxes that players just have no reason to ever spend gems on. This is a problem for players because their old cards retain no value beyond sentimental. They can't be recycled into dust to produce more relevant cards, and they can't be strategically used in most modern game modes, which is a pain point if players invested a significant amount in those cards, or simply just want to use their old favorites. On the developer end, it would be better for them if boxes had a longer lifespan. Releasing a new box might bring a surge of interest and income, but a stronger model would find a way to preserve the desirability of older boxes. How do you make July of 2017's Electric Overload box relevant in 2025? Legacy duels are one answer. By tailoring the playable card pool to allow power crept cards to see use, while providing rewards like gems and cosmetics, players might again have a reason to take advantage of all of those old box half-off sales that happen periodically. Overall, Legacy duels provide an alternative to the breakneck speed of modern play, while boosting the health of the game by restoring purpose to the growing graveyard of time-lost cards that players must sift through every time they build a deck. Prepare for trouble and make it double, because the Tag Duel Tournament takes a spot number 5 on this list. Running every few months since its first iteration in January 2018, Duel Links has hosted 21 Tag Duel Tournaments in total as of this video script writing. Each event consists of one or more cups where players partner up with a legendary duelist from each world to team fight their way through a ladder of odd couple matches, gaining cosmetics, cards, and gems all the way. Mathematically, these matches play like any other duel, except that you and your partner alternate turns and your opponent does the same. Both pairs of players start with 6,000 life points and share their field, including graveyards and banishment. This means that while you can't see the cards in your partner's hand, you can activate your partner's set back row and vice versa. Like most Duel Links solo events, the tag tournament is pretty easy. You can brainlessly auto-duel your way through most of it if you don't feel like participating but want the rewards. Still, it's not as auto-duelable as other events, because even with powerful cards and skills, you can't totally count on your AI partner to play optimally. Once a cup has been completed, you unlock the ability to team up with that partner while prestige clearing future tag duels. So don't worry. If you really love dueling alongside Weevil Underwood, there's a way to keep doing that. But this is also an interesting mechanic, because it adds an element of meta progression to the equation. By participating in Tag Duels 1 through 20, you unlock more ways to play Tag Duel 21. The 4th and 5th Tag Duel tournaments introduce Luminous and Umbra as playable characters, and interestingly, there are a few skills that are completely useless outside of Tag Duels, like Tory Meadows have some dual fuel, which grants your partner 2,000 life points at the start of their next turn. But the Tag Duel tournament deserves a spot on this list, not because of niche skill viability, but because of what it offers: a large amount of gems and a unique dueling experience. Some cups saw players square off against classic combinations, like Seto and Mokuba's Kaiba KC tag deck in the finals of Tag Duel Tournament 3's Dark Magic Cup, or Yamayugi and the Yugimoto's Dark Silence deck in the finals of the Tag Duel Tournament 7's Duel Monster Cup. But in addition to the classics, we also got combinations that are sweet for lore reasons, like the Carly Carmine / Jack Atlas and Joey Wheeler / My Valentine team-ups. Leo and Luna have paired off a few times with their sibling tag deck, a strategy that would later be referenced when Yami Merrick and Ishizu Ishtar teamed up in Tag Duel Tournament 15 with their strategy Sibling Tag. There were other cool extra canon pairs, like Yami Yugi and Arcana's Dark Magic Symphony deck from Tag Duel Tournament 2, and Tristan Taylor and Esparoba's Fighting Psychic strategy from Tag Duel Tournament 5. Over the years, the Tag Duel tournaments have brought some totally off-the-wall pairings, like Tyranno Hasselberry / Blair Flanagan's Team Dinos and Love Deck, or just Para Sans Docs teaming up with Strings with a Slimy Labyrinth strategy. There's also Dark-Sided Dimension Minor Bully Scuds team with the random overworld duelist Nick using a deck called NSFW, the most terrifying stream ever. Hopefully Nick is okay. Overall, the Tag Duel tournaments are a lot of fun, and give us Konami-stamped glimpses into duelist alliances never seen outside of fanfiction. It's whimsical and a little silly, and a number 5 on this list. And taking the plunge at number 4 is the event Dive In Treasure Hunter Ghost Gal, first running from October 22nd to November 2nd of 2023, and again from February of 18 to 26 of 2024. This event introduced Emma Besho, better known by her Vrain's alter ego Ghost Gal, as a playable character. As far as gate events go, Dive In Treasure Hunter Ghost Gal didn't push many boundaries in a mechanical sense. Players collected event-exclusive items they could exchange to duel Ghost Gal at the gate, and slowly accumulate event points through these challenges and by engaging in event duels in the overworld. With Ghost Gal came some of her trademark Altergeist cards, including Altergeist Manifestation, Altergeist Hextia, Altergeist Pixia, and Altergeist Kidolga. But while this event was pretty typical in how it played out, it literally crossed the boundaries of the worlds of Duel Links and established a lore. So first, what exactly is Duel Links lore-wise? This idea is still developing, but it's much more than a virtual simulation system developed by Ccapac. While that is the avenue through which some of the many Link personas arrived in the virtual home, the software world reaches beyond any single timeline or dimension. Emma enters Duel Links as a ghost gal on assignment from the CEO of Sol Technologies, the company responsible for the Link's Vrains network in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains anime. Ghost Gal is charged with exploring the mysterious new world that's suddenly linked into the Vrains. After some snooping, she meets up with Playmaker and AI, which is notable because the AI she knew from Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains is gone. But even with this information, she entertains the thought that Duel Links AI and Vrains AI are in fact the same AI. It's been well documented by now that one of the functions of Duel Links is to serve as a sort of digital afterlife and archive for departed duelists. When Bones first arrived on the scene, he was alarmed and frightened to see Yami Bakura, who had cast him into the shadows in real life. Arcana is surprised to find himself still alive, or at least enjoying some form of continued existence, if technically not living. In a similar way, the Ignis have returned and Ghost Gal is fascinated by their resurrection. After gathering intel from the Vrains crew, Ghost Gal assembles her fellow duelists for an expedition into the depths of Duel Links. As a skilled hacker and information gatherer, she is able to guide her crew to the deepest depths where Playmaker first encountered the new and possibly old AI. The Link's world is already bigger than when Playmaker first entered, but Ghost Gal is confident in her abilities. But in case things go south, she enlists one final ally, the player. The lore implications of this are staggering. Has Link's Ghost Gal managed to ascertain when her fellow digital beings are possessed by the player? Has she directly witnessed the shadows use entity? Or merely pierced together this fourth wall shattering reality by analyzing clues? Regardless, the gang reaches the deepest parts of Duel Links, the neutral loading screen space where worlds have yet to be built. From this undefined core between extant worlds, the gang are able to glimpse duelists from across time and space. They see Yami Yugi, Jaden Yuki, Yusei Fudo, Yuma Tsukumo, Yuya Sakaki, and even Yuga Odo from Rush Duels. Varus and Playmaker are able to identify that Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links is a neuron network constructed from the overlaid thoughts and emotions of a shared vital subconscious. Varus posits that the purpose of Duel Links is to unite all consciousnesses, and the group speculates over what might result from the emergence of such radical cognitive singularity. Ultimately, they decide that they cannot yet know, and elect to go home. While this might be lore set up to eventually allow speed duelists to also play rush duels, these lore developments open up further possibilities for even more worlds. Although the Waking the Dragons and Kaiba Corp Grand Prix anime filler arcs are not technically established canon within the app, it's possible that Duel Links will still reach out like the cyber octopus it is and connect to duelists like Siegfried von Schrödinger and Darts. It's also possible that Duel Links will connect to a world of dual monster spirits, like a tour guide from the underworld. In conclusion, the Dive-In Treasure Hunter Ghost Gal event is absolutely noteworthy and deserves a spot on this list for its Duel Links specific lore implications. And taking number 3 is the Different Dimension Castle series. This mega adventure was split into 4 separate events, starting with DD Castle Emergence, which ran May 7th to 13th, 2020. Emergence was followed by DD Castle Siege from August 13th and 19th of 2020, and DD Castle Assault from December 3rd to 14th, 2020. Assault allowed players to unlock Axel Brody as a playable character for GX World, and ran a second time February 15th to 24th of 2021. Finally, DD Castle's Supreme King Rises first occurred from July 29th to August 9th of 2021, and the DD Castle Saga fully concluded with the second run of Supreme King Rises from October 6th to 19th of 2021. The final chapter of the DD Castle Saga introduced major GX antagonist Supreme King Jaden Yuki, driving the number of Jaden variants playable in the game up to 3, including the original Jaden Yuki and Jaden/Yubel, making Jaden the game's currently most featured character, if you differentiate between Yugimoto and the Pharaoh anyway. The DD Castle bore a strong resemblance to an earlier Saga of Duel Links events, the Different Dimension Tower. Both event lines saw players participating in wave duels, where a gauntlet of enemy challenged the player consecutively with no pauses between matches. The DD Tower series also introduced an elemental component. Enemies each had a vulnerability to a different attribute, and would take extra damage from monsters with that elemental background. This carried over into the DD Castle series, but while they were similar in form, DD Castle evolved the DD Tower concept by introducing a narrative story and character unlocks, with Axel Brody's skills giving the longtime useless volcanic monsters a little viability, and the Supreme King bringing his evil heroes into the game with him. Like the dive-in treasure hunter Ghost Gal, what's most interesting about DD Castle is the meta-narrative and its implications for the bizarre rabbit hole that is the world of Duel Links. Fittingly, Duel Links Resident's bingo host tour guide from the Underworld is also our guide through the Different Dimension Castle. When it first emerges, she's a little shocked, and quickly discover that the castle is full of monsters, but also treasure and rewards the players could receive by climbing its many floors. At floor 30, players duel against a collection of Dark World royalty, including Braun, Mad King of Dark World, Rainbow, Overlord of Dark World, and Grapha, Dragon Lord of Dark World. While the Supreme King had yet to enter the game, the presence of Dark World monsters foreshadowed his presence, since theirs was the dimension Supreme King Jaden ruled in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime. But before dealing with the rise of the Supreme King, other dark denizens would appear in his place. DD Castle Siege saw the tour guide from the Underworld again taking players through a new iteration of the interdimensional fortress. This time, the party grew to include Vampire Hunter, a silent fiend slayer with a bad habit of communicating exclusively through his whip. While a little wary of Vampire Hunter's effect to automatically destroy dark monsters, tour guide, hunter, and player form an uneasy alliance, culminating in combat against Vampire Scarlet Scourge, Vampire Crimson, and Vampire Lord on the final 30th floor of the castle. Although the team is successful at routing the vampires, a hunter is nothing without the hunt, and Vampire Hunter immediately turns on the closest fiend, hitting tour guide with his whip. She then seemingly dies a tragic death, informing Vampire Hunter that he must now carry the mantle of guiding players through Duel Links. This is, however, a joke at Vampire Hunter's expense, as tour guide reveals that since it's not currently the battle phase, his effect cannot activate. During the DD Castle assault, evil heroes Infernal Gainer, Malicious Edge, and Lightning Golem were the new wave of big bads on floor 30. This time, Dark Blade was the new guide. Like Vampire Hunter, at first, he didn't say much, but eventually Dark Blade revealed himself to actually be legendary duelist Axel Brody. While this might seem a little random, Axel Brody did disguise his identity with a set of Dark Blade's metal silver armor in Season 3 of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Despite climbing through every available floor of the castle, Axel is unable to locate the Supreme King, the enemy he made it his mission to kill. But in time, Axel would get another chance with DD Castle Supreme King Rises. The final emergence of the Different Dimensional Castle saw the Supreme King at the head of an army of monsters bent on conquering all of Duel Links. Axel returns to defend GX World and Duel Links from his old enemy. But where things get really weird is that Jaden/Yubel joins Axel in his defense. With Jaden staving off the monster's onslaught outside the castle, Axel infiltrates enemy lines to fight the Supreme King directly, like he did in the other world. With the end of Supreme King Rises and the monster armies retreating, the GX gang wonders whether the entity they face was the real Supreme King. Unable to arrive at a conclusive answer, Jaden/Yubel suggests that anything goes in this world, and if they really wanted answers, they should ask somebody at Ccapac. We've got a fitting pick for number 2, Duel Links' second major character unlock event. Fear the Deck of Terror Destiny Board of Doom first ran from March 23rd to April 3rd of 2017, and again from June 28th to July 9th of the same year. It introduced Yami Bakura as a playable character, and new Fiend cards like the powerful Dark Necrofear and forgettable Archfiend Empress. In form and function, Fear the Deck of Terror was pretty similar to Welcome to Toon World, and many other legendary Duelist Gate events. Players accumulated 10-sided dice by playing the game, and could exchange those items to challenge Yami Bakura at levels 10, 20, 30, and 40 at the gate. Occasionally, an extra hard level 50 version of Yami Bakura with Dark Master Zork deck would appear in the overworld. So why this event? Well, it introduced some very important concepts that would become key features, and it was actually kind of hard relative to other Duel Links events. One thing events typically are not is super difficult, because typically players are overpowered. Part of this comes from the mini cards available to players against set NPC decks, but this is where Fear the Deck of Terror actually benefited from being the app's second major character unlock event. The card pool was smaller, and players couldn't crank out broken cards with the reliability of current meta decks, but that alone wouldn't have made the event difficult. The card pool was even more limited for the Pegasus event, and we already talked about him. Fear the Deck of Terror was Duel Links' first foray into timing duels. When challenging Yami-Bakura during the event, the Spirit of the Millennium Ring would hit the field with the Destiny Board of Doom skill. This would cause him to open with Dark Necrofear in the graveyard, and the Duel Links version of the Destiny Board countdown active. At the end of each turn, Yami-Bakura would gain a letter, and at the end of his 5th turn, win the duel. You could stop the countdown by removing Dark Necrofear from the graveyard, but that's another place where the squeeze of the limited card pool was really felt. No DD Crows or Schuberta the Melodious Mastra here. Luckily, Yami-Bakura would sometimes negate his own victory condition by using his Dark Necrofear in the graveyard as a material for a Dark Necrofear in hand, but you couldn't count on that. What you might do though is recall the timed component of raid duels from the Flames of Vengeance event way back at the beginning of this list. While Yami-Bakura's event was no raid duel, concepts developed by the Millennium Ring event would factor into this new event type, still several years down the duelist road. A final noteworthy thing about Fear the Deck of Terror was its overworld overhaul. Instead of just getting a temporary event icon at the center of the screen, Yami-Bakura took over the entire world, and it looked awesome. Although Dark Sanctuary has yet to appear in-game as an actual card, Fear the Deck of Terror brought Dark Sanctuary into the game in much more of a literal sense, or rather, the game into Dark Sanctuary, as shadows, eyes, and yawing mouths fill the sky with Necrofear's distant palace looming. It looked great, and as Duel Links' first major aesthetic update for an event, is an important piece of the format's history. With app version 1.7 in the event's second run, Yami-Bakura's Destiny Board of Doom skill would only activate against the level 40 and 50 versions of the Spirit, but this wouldn't be the end. This skill would return for the Duelist Chronicles Battle City Showdown event, which first ran from April 26th to May 7th of 2018, and again from March 8th to March 15th of 2019. Perhaps someday, the Dark Spirit will return and the Destiny board will manifest again. After all, there are retrained Bakura cards that, as of script writing, have yet to creep into the app. But before capping off the list, I want to give an honorable mention to the KC Cup. This regular tournament is an important part of the format, so important that it feels like a feature of the game, and would be a little out of place competing with the temporary events of this list. Now let's set sail for spot number 1. The top event of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links is Duelist Kingdom, but not the Duelist Chronicles narrative event. We're talking about the PvP Duelist Kingdom event. Rather than your standard 2 runs, Duelist Kingdom is one of those events that occurs periodically, about 2 times per year. This pattern began in 2021 and has held ever since. And that's a good thing because this event is pretty cool. A feature of the Duelist Kingdom arc of the Duel Monsters anime was the field power bonuses, where certain monsters would benefit from the environment where a duel takes place. In the anime, this took the form of insects enjoying the dense forest and fiends preferring to duel in the dark of night. In Duel Links Kingdom, both players are able to choose their field power bonus. Favored attributes shift throughout the event, with all monsters of a given attribute getting stat increases of up to 600 points. On top of this blanket bonus, you also get access to a once per duel skill to temporarily increase the attack of the chosen attribute monsters by the same amount until the end of the turn. This means the attack of your standard Blue Eyes White Dragon could climb as high as 4200 from a 600 passive plus 600 one-time boost. But there are actually even more environmental benefits. You can also receive an extra card complementing your chosen attribute from outside your deck at the start of the duel at no cost. Ever wonder what it's like for Axel Brody's fire reload levels to actually be playable? A raw boost of 600 points and free rekindling can get you there. Participating in the event would get you star chips that could be exchanged to challenge an event version of Pegasus. But really, since it's a PvP event, fighting the NPC boss is always the easiest part. And like all PvP events, Duelist Kingdom does suffer the same struggles as the meta it enters into. If Dengursu Orcus decks are overpowered on the latter, they'll probably be overpowered in Duelist Kingdom, especially with an elemental bonus. But the favorite attribute will shift, and with more tools and base power, spicy decks get spicier. It's just true that more decks will be playable in Duelist Kingdom, because meta decks don't require the extra bonus to win. But rogue decks can absolutely use these boosts to strengthen their claim against dominant powers. It's not perfect, and will always be janky. But when so many events basically boil down to auto-dueling over interesting backgrounds, Duelist Kingdom actually offers interesting competitive play. And on top of that, it offers a lot of gems. Because it's a PvP event, participating in the event not only nets you event rewards, but PvP rewards as well. Even without offering a new character, Duelist Kingdom delivers on gems. For offering both a healthy injection of in-game currency and the chance to use new and old cards in an interesting way, Duelist Kingdom takes the crown for the #1 event on this list.